Hello, everyone. I am Hope Knight, President and CEO of the Greater Jamaica Development Corporation. Thank you for joining us tonight for the second installment in our ongoing series, Jamaica Rising and Resilient. The Greater Jamaica Development Corporation is proud of the work we've done and continue to do to improve the lives of the people who live and work in Southeast Queens. We are paying special attention to hard-hit entrepreneurs, distributing PPE, supporting access to government initiatives such as the PPP loan program, providing free technical assistance and loans to businesses that might not qualify for traditional financing. Many of you joined us in November when we spoke with Congressman Gregory Meeks. With the recent election of President Biden, Representative Meeks was hopeful that legislative majorities would open up funding for cities and deeply affected urban downtowns. Today, we are going to go a little bit more local and proudly welcome our new Queensborough President, Donovan Richards. A lifelong resident of Southeast Queens, Donovan has been a robust advocate for this community with a special focus on affordable housing, public safety, and inclusive economic development. As a city council person, when he was chair of the subcommittee on zoning and franchises, he played an influential role in the rezoning of 22 blocks in Far Rockaway, which will increase the affordable housing stock, build new parks and infrastructure, and will create many new jobs with this redevelopment. We are delighted that Borough President Richards now has the opportunity to bring that commitment and energy to the entire borough. It is a time of special challenge and uncharted territory, but I know the Borough President shares our optimism that working together, better days are ahead. Welcome, Borough President Richards. We are so grateful to have you with us here today. This is an exciting time. We are so glad that you are in your seat, but we are having some unprecedented times. And so with that, I want to just jump into our discussion and ask you, what is your economic development vision for Queens? And then maybe talk a little bit about how that attributes specifically to Southeast Queens.
Well, thank you so much, and so great to be here. And I want to thank the Greater Jamaica Development Corporation, especially you, for the leadership that you've shown over the course of the last few years in Queens, and specifically in Jamaica. And you know, when we talk about the vision of of tomorrow and where we're going in Queens, you know, one, I like to always start with the premise that any planning that we do needs to really have a strong community-based component. So really having strong community engagement is going to be critical to ensuring that any projects we do across Queens will be successful. And I sort of take a step back and just model after some of the successes we've had in my prior capacity as a city council member, for instance, in the Rockaways, where we were able to shepherd in and approve close to 10,000 units of what I hope will be built over the course of the next 10 years, 10,000 units of affordable housing. But really, when we talked about building housing and where we need to go with economic development, that has to be rooted in community development. So for communities like Jamaica and Southeast Queens and many other parts of Queens, you often hear the same thing. We need more school seats. We need more park space. We need more open space. We need better transportation. We need to make sure that any projects we're doing are environmentally friendly. So making sure that as development happens across the borough, that we are specifically ensuring that the city is coming to the table with a real plan to build out a community, not just housing. I think there's one thing this pandemic has shown us, and it's shown us that if you don't deal with these disparities, you're going to have communities that unfortunately are under siege during any crisis as we've seen today. So I think looking at equity is key as we move forward in any economic development strategies we have, and making sure that Queens gets its fair share. And that has not happened for a very long time. We have had some bright spots in some of the work you've done in downtown Jamaica, some work we've done in Far Rockaway. But the bottom line is, if we're not building out communities holistically, we're going to find ourselves right back here again.
And so, do you have any thoughts about Southeast Queens specifically around some economic development objectives?
Oh, absolutely. And I think, I mean, Jamaica Avenue to me presents a real opportunity. But one of the things we're looking at doing, and you might have seen us release, for instance, the a transition list of about 120 folks, is, you know, one of our focuses is going to be is looking at zoning opportunities. And one of the things I'm going to announce sometime this year is the framework for a zoning task force, which will look at premier business corridors. So for instance, Merrick Boulevard presents a real key opportunity, right? From Jamaica all the way up to Laurelton. There's such a need for senior housing, for affordable housing, for community development. When we look at some of the blight and some of the challenges our small businesses are happening at this moment, I think we need to be more proactive in approaching a land use strategy and approaching the city, not waiting for the city to necessarily come to us and dictate, well, we want to look at this corridor. But I think if we can sit down with the community board members, with community stakeholders, and identify these opportunities and come up with, well, these are the other things that we need packaged with any deal that will happen, I think that we have some key opportunities. But I think Southeast Queens, there's a Linden Boulevard. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. But whatever we do, it has to be done, like I said, with a real community-based planning lens, and that's something we're going to be exploring over the course of the next few months.
That sounds tremendous. So you talk about land use as a specific policy initiative. Are there any others?
Yeah, so I mean, there's still, you look at what's happening at the airports. I mean, between JFK and LaGuardia, there's a lot of synergy there. There's a lot of opportunity to make sure that MBE firms, MWBE firms are front and center. I'm also excited about bringing back some manufacturing to Queens. I think there's also some opportunities there. We closed on the deal right before I left the council to bring Bartlett Dairy into Queens, which is going to be about 400 union jobs. I'm proud of this deal. 50% local hiring agreement. We got some scholarship money for the kids who go to Springfield High School, young people, because they don't like to be called kids, young people who go to Springfield High School. So I think, you know, our industrial areas also present a real key opportunity as well. And then, you know, we need to look at culture and arts. And you know, I was just meeting with the MTA recently, and we were talking about this rich culture we have right in downtown Jamaica. We have JCAL. We have these institutions that are not necessarily being plugged, or people who go to shop on Jamaica Avenue don't even know that they really exist. So I think culture and arts, I think you look at York College, that presents a real key opportunity as well. I know we're talking about the possibility of a soccer stadium coming there momentarily or temporarily until they finish up Willard's Point, but that also presents a key opportunity. I think that campus we should think boldly about as well as we move forward with some real plans that I think could help us address a lot of the disparities that have existed, but also move us right into the future. And I want to end on Jamaica Avenue because there's so much work to be done. And the Jamaica Now plan was certainly a great start to what we needed to get done to start to move Jamaica Avenue forward. Speaking to the MTA about doing a Jamaica bus depot over again, just as my colleague, State Senator Leroy Comrie and I, Danique Miller, have been fighting for forever. So I think we're in a real prime position to really reimagine and reshape our business corridors, our business communities. But with that, we're going to have to get an influx of capital dollars. And that's what we'll be fighting for between Senator Chuck Schumer going to Washington, D.C., becoming our majority leader, and making sure that, you know, those investments are coming into Southeast Queens and downtown Jamaica.
That is tremendous. Very excited to hear about lots of transportation initiatives. You know, Queens has a robust network of not-for-profit organizations and chambers of commerce and very lively civic infrastructure that is very proactive. And Greater Jamaica Development Corporation as an economic development entity, how can we help you further some of these goals?
Well, I think first off, you've done a tremendous, I think Greater Jamaica has done a tremendous job. I mean, every time I go to downtown Jamaica, I'm like, whoa, what is coming up next? So let's just speak about that. I think that, shifting the culture and the perception of Jamaica is going to be critical, I think, as we move into the future. I think there's still a lot of challenges. First off, when you think about safety, whether it's real or not, the perception of safety in downtown Jamaica is a real problem. So we're losing a lot of disposable income to Long Island, right? And that's money that we should be able to tap into. I think even when you look at downtown Jamaica and just the culture of some of the stores, for instance, when I got to go to downtown Jamaica to shop, I have to check my bag, right? Do you feel welcome is the big question mark. So I think we're going to have to work in unison and in partnership to make sure, one, that the police department is doing what they can to do, but we know that the police department's not the only answer or solution to making Jamaica feel safety. It's going to take a cultural shakeup a little bit. And so I think that that's going to be critical. And I think just thinking about key opportunities, along the corridors, as you have done already, I think we should reimagine what Jamaica looks like. It should be work, play, live, right? And
Absolutely.
I think moving into the future, there will be some real key opportunities with future administrations to actually achieve this.
So you mentioned MWBEs just a second ago. Let's talk about the importance of MWBEs and how do we create, kind of greater equity as we move forward and past this pandemic, as we look at some of these important and very significant infrastructure projects, et cetera.
Well, it all starts with us, right? And especially those in leadership positions who these projects are going to come before us, right? So I always, will stress every land use. In my former capacity as the chairman of the zoning committee in the council, for instance, any land use application that came before me, I would always ask that question: what is your percentage of MWBE procurement on this project? We've already started to implement that right in the borough president's office. Every application that has come before us, although I play an advisory role, it needs to be more common. It shouldn't be a second thought on where you need to go when you have development happening in our communities. So I think MWBEs play such a key role because for us, by us is how we build equity for our communities, right? We know that companies who look like us and come from our communities are more likely to hire us as well, right? And more likely to hire locally as well. So MBEs can play a big role. And I see my job as being one who really shakes that tree to make sure that that is actually happening. And then the other thing that I sort of started to task my land use division with doing too is how do we organize a portal? One of the things that prevents opportunities sometimes, and we know access to capital is a big one, and government needs to make sure there's more of that. But two, there's just a lack of knowledge of what's happening around the borough, around the city, and where to apply and who to go to when a project is happening. So one of the things we want to see, at least within this office, is when projects are coming up, and of course, from a ethics standpoint, I cannot go to a developer and say, you go with this MBE. But if at least there's a process or a place that many of these firms or companies coming in know that they can go to and look towards utilizing for a project, that's a step in the right direction. And we did a lot of that in Far Rockaway with a lot of the different projects we had. We were able to really do informational sessions and have MBEs at the table. I remember we did Ocean Bay houses over, and there was a brother from Springfield Gardens who had this glass company. He did all the glass over, I think, for that entire development. It's a big opportunity for him. So we need to ensure that that's happening. I also speak about the success at JFK recently, where we were able to see 2 restaurant owners, Michael Duncan and also Annette, come in and bring their company into, now running one of the actual concessions there. We need to do more of that. But what I will say is power never concedes power. We have to be front and center in talking about these issues to make sure that our folks are getting not just a piece of the pie, but the pie.
Absolutely. So my last question for you is, tell me how you see the role of public-private partnerships in helping to strengthen and create more opportunities in the borough.
Well, I think during this time, money is not falling from the tree. You know, there was at one point where, you know, early on, we weren't dealing with a budget deficit in the city like we are now. I think we're projected to have somewhere around $7 or $8 billion budget deficit. God willing, with the Biden administration, states will get some assistance and we'll be able to fill some of the holes in the budget. But the bottom line is, we know moving forward that it's really going to take key partnership between public and private companies to really move a lot of hurdles that we've seen recently, whether it's jobs, whether it's access to food. You know, we're talking about small businesses. I'm very happy, and I'm happy that Greater Jamaica was a part of this. This is something we stress with EDC. But you look at the partnership between the New York Mets and the city, and how we were able to bring in about a $17–18 million fund that is going to enable us to pay rent for business owners who are, unfortunately, during this pandemic, going through a crisis themselves. So I see as these firms come in, it's up to us once again in government to make sure we're saying, what are the community benefits, and how could we utilize private companies to also be helpful in resolving many of the inequities that communities deal with as well. So I think there's a key opportunity. There will be no shortage, because Queens is the future. I think as you look at development, as you look at Sunnyside Yards, as you look at the air train coming into LaGuardia, as you look at JFK Terminal 1, you know, it's how do we work in unison? And it's been a challenging time, let me be clear, for private companies to really come in via Amazon, we could talk about, but I think there are some learning lessons there for private companies as well, that you really do have to engage the community, and then working with local stakeholders. I think there's a real key opportunity to strengthen the relationship and to ensure that we're delivering the goods and services that people need around the borough. So I see it playing a big role. I talked about Bartlett Dairy. I talked about Amazon, which was a real missed opportunity, but a lot of learning lessons there. And there are going to be countless other opportunities that I believe will come to fruition over the course of the next few decades. And we'll have to make sure we're all working and moving in one direction. But that starts with community-based planning.
Tremendous. I just want to build on something you said. There is an amazing program in Queens called the Queens Small Business Grant Program. And you can go to the GJDC website if you don't know anything about it, but there are grants available for street level businesses. Up to
$20,000, and street vendors. There's a slight, you know, there's a few thousand set aside for street vendors.
That's right.
Daycares as well. And Hope, what is great about this program is that we really had the city and the Mets focus in on the specific pockets of the borough that would hit hardest by the pandemic. So those communities are going to be prioritized, your Coronas, your East Elmhurst, your Far Rockaway, but it doesn't preclude other people from different communities from applying as well. So really take advantage. But that's an example of a good private-public partnership where the Mets came into the city and there was a lease agreement, and we were able to work to secure some money that will benefit the residents of Queens.
Yes, tremendous. So thank you for your inspiring words and vision. We appreciate you, and we stand willing to support you in your effort in strengthening this great borough of Queens and this amazing community in the southeast corner of the borough. And we want you to be safe, be well, and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. Happy New Year. We're going to get through this tough time together. You know, grateful for what we're going to see coming out of Washington. Grateful to have so many partners here, including you, Congressman Gregory Meeks, Leroy Comrie, and so many countless others. And great positions of leadership that I think are really going to be beneficial to the future of Jamaica and Southeast Queens. So look forward to the work ahead with you in Greater Jamaica.
Absolutely. Take care.
Take care.
So we know it's not business as usual. Many of us are working remotely, but at GJDC, our work is not remote. We are providing on-the-ground assistance to struggling small businesses, and we are a lifeline for so many of these entities. I use the word lifeline intentionally because although GJDC isn't the only organization providing critical assistance to small businesses, we do have a hyper focus on Southeast Queens. And in a nutshell, in just under a year, we've helped over 1,000 small businesses, provided low interest loans totaling more than $1 million, and are now managing a small business grant program, which is focused on the Borough of Queens. On behalf of the board and staff of GJDC, I want to thank all of our donors and supporters for allowing us to do this work. 100% of the funds raised in these continuing conversations are dedicated to funding our labor-intensive small business assistance. I hope those of you that are watching this evening will consider a tax-deductible donation to GJDC. Easy links can be found on the front page of our website, and we are deeply appreciative of your support. On our website, you can also find more detailed information about our ongoing projects and programs. Thank you so much for attending this discussion, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Good evening.